The temperature in Darlington, South Carolina today in the middle 90s. Humidity in the middle 80s. 40 Grand National stock cars ready to try to run 500 miles. Hello again, everybody. I'm Keith Jackson. Yes, it's Southern 500 time on one of the meanest old racetracks anywhere in the world. Darlington, the original. Crowd, got to be a near record. They just stuffed them in here, and good reason for it, because there's a lot of things that could happen. David Pearson, for example, the pole sitter, has been on that pole 7 times. He's never won this race. Richard Petty, slightly ill. A lot of stories developing as they prepare themselves for this 26th running of the Southern 500. Perhaps it's a day when somebody's going to come from the back of the pack to win it. But here's a guy who did win it in 1966, our expert commentator for this year's Southern 500, Darrell Derringer. Darrell, what makes this old racetrack so hard?
Well, this racetrack pretty much is a one-groove racetrack. And definitely the last 2 days we've had a lot of rain here. There's no rubber on the racetrack. It's going to be very dangerous at the beginning because the boys had their cars set up for a hot day. There was rubber on the racetrack. Now it is fresh. There's no rubber at all. And I think the first part of the race, the boys are going to have to respect each other and settle down and cool it until the first gas stop maybe. And after that, they'll get down to very serious racing.
Darrell, as the starting field of 40 cars moves out into their pace laps, to underscore what you have said about the treachery of this old racetrack and the respected demands of the drivers, I recall that incredible accident of Richard Petty that he walked away from. And of course, Cale Yarborough has tangled with the wall here, too. I talked earlier with him about it. Cale, what makes this old racetrack so mean?
Well, Keith, I guess the biggest reason this racetrack is the toughest in the country to run on is the racetrack was built for speeds about 80 miles an hour, and we're running, close to 160 miles an hour now, 155, and it just makes a big difference. The racetrack is absolutely a one-groove racetrack, and if you run 500 miles here, it can beat the racetrack itself all day. You got a pretty good chance of winning, but I think this is the only racetrack in the entire country that if you ran qualifying speed for 500 miles on the racetrack completely by yourself, you'd do good if you ran 500 miles out there by yourself. So that's what makes it tough. You got to fight, run against the racetrack as well as the other cars all day long.
Well, the pace lap continues. Let's go back to 1965 when Cale Yarborough and Sam McQuagg tangled, and Yarborough wound up over the wall. One of the most spectacular stock car accidents you'll ever see. But the stocky South Carolinian walked away from it and came back to race. It is David Pearson sitting on the pole now with Buddy Baker alongside of him outside, Bobby Allison, Richard Petty, Benny Parsons, Dave Marcus, the front 3 rows. As the field works its way around, we should be very close to a start. Back in there, you have also Dick Brooks and Lenny Pond and Darrell Waltrip and Bruce Hill. Sitting well back in the field is Cale Yarborough. We're looking for a green. We've got a green, and David Pearson in number 21 goes jumping into the lead. And Darrell, he may have had a little extra gear in his hand.
I believe he did, Keith. I believe he took off in low gear or second gear and kind of outboxed the boys on the start there.
As the field turns now safely down the back straight, heading for the turn number 3, heading toward the end of the first lap, it's David Pearson, Buddy Baker, Richard Petty, and Bobby Allison in that order. The field is running now in a very sanitary fashion. Nobody crowding anybody as they begin to settle down. They've got to go 500 miles on a very hot, humid day. Richard Petty, you saw make a little move there, Darrell, and I thought for a minute he might try to make a pass going into 1, but that's dangerous country.
Yes, Richard tried to run a little wide in 3 and 4 and draft by Buddy down the front straightaway, but when he got to number 1 corner, he didn't have enough speed up, so he had to back off and let Buddy take the lead again.
Richard Petty and Buddy Baker, both among the drivers who have had a little trouble with a stomach flu, and both of them were feeling rather poorly this morning when they came to the racetrack, but they're going to try to shake it off and hang in there. The running order right now is David Pearson, Buddy Baker, Richard Petty, and Bobby Allison. And now Buddy Baker has closed right in behind David Pearson in a perfect drafting position. Just kind of a question, I guess, as to whether or not Buddy wants to take a run for the lead. Remember, now, this is a very, very hot day, and the temperatures are just going to go out of sight inside those automobiles. And now we see the leaders beginning to lap some of the slower cars. Slower cars will drop down into the low groove and let the hot dogs go on by. This is a handling racetrack. That is a common phrase you hear, and before the race started today, I talked to some of the drivers to get their impressions of it.
Yes, it is. If you got the handle here, you don't really need that much horsepower. If you can get through the corners good and stay out of trouble, before at least halfway of the race, you seem like you got it made then.
The slower cars have to use the same groove going into 3 and coming out of 4 that the fast cars do. and it required just a lot of jumping on the brakes and jumping on the gas and weaving in and out of traffic, and I look for the whole day to just be a tough one today.
2 feet out of the groove at the wrong place, and you're in the wall, so it's just total concentration. You have to really and truly concentrate on every turn of the wheel.
Handling is the factor, particularly after the first 100 or so miles. When the track gets extremely slick, a car that is underpowered can actually run quicker here than a powerful car that's not handling well. So handling is a factor, and staying fresh is another factor. So I'm already considering the fact of getting somebody to stand by in my pit area to take over maybe halfway, and so we can stay good and fresh all day.
That'd be an unusual thing. We don't see relief drivers very much anymore.
Well, it's hard on our pride. We don't like to get out of the race cars. I don't particularly. I've only ever gotten out of it one time, and we don't like to do it, but something tells me today that might be the key to success here today.
Those comments from the drivers before the start of the race. Meantime, back on the racetrack, Buddy Baker hangs on to David Pearson. Right behind him are Richard Petty and Bobby Allison. And, Darrell, it appears that we have really a 4-car draft going right here with those leaders.
That's right, Keith. They are still drafting early in the race. They're pretty well calm. They got a lot of traffic on the racetrack. There's a lot of slower cars out. Oh, there goes Walter Ballard.
Ballard is on the wall along pit road. Just broke loose from the racetrack. I don't believe he was tapped by anybody. Might have blown a tire. Something happened. Whatever, Walter out of Houston, Texas is on the wall and possibly out of the race. That brings out the yellow flag, and we'll be back in Darlington in just a moment. All right, we're back at the Darlington Raceway in South Carolina on a hot, sticky day, and we're anticipating green as the field comes working around toward the start-finish line. As they come for the green, if they do in fact get it, it'll be Baker, Allison, Petty, and Pearson in that order, since everybody made pit stops under the caution, and we're running again in the Southern 500. And it's Buddy Baker in the Ford, Bobby Allison in the Matador, Richard Petty in the Dodge, and David Pearson running now in 4th place. He made a couple of pit stops, took on 4 tires. Most of the people only took on 2, and watch Petty close on Allison right here. I mentioned it's a hot, sticky day, Darrell. How hot do you reckon it might be in those cockpits?
I imagine inside those cars it's about 130 and 135 degrees, and it's very, very hot in there.
Uncomfortable, to say the least. Now watch Petty close as they both drop down into the low groove. Closing in on Buddy Baker. As they draft each other here, they help each other, as a matter of fact. Petty moves up alongside of Allison in that turn. He's got enough on him. He's going to get him, and he's got him. So Petty moves into the number 2 position, passing Bobby Allison. Now he's chasing Buddy Baker. They're running 350 cubic inch engines, in contrast to the great big ones like the 427s and 429s they used to run. You got to wind these little guys up a little more, don't you?
That's right, Keith. It used to be they could come up behind a guy and just drive right around him. But now they got a slingshot and hope there's nobody in front of him where they have to back off and breathe it in him.
All right, Petty now moving on Baker, moving on him. He's got a good draft. He slips in front of him, and I'll tell you, that got a little tiny as they worked that close together, no more than 3 feet apart. But Richard Petty now has moved into the lead as he passes Buddy Baker. That's Richard Brooks in car number 90, running right in front of Petty, and Petty's going to put him a lap down here very shortly, I think. The way Richard Petty is driving, it looks like he's capable right now just blowing everybody off the racetrack. If he's sick, he isn't showing it at all. Let's work our way down here to the Petty pit, see if we can get a hold of the crew chief, Dale Inman, and talk with Dale about Richard Petty's condition under this pressure. Looks like everything's all right, but I hear he's got a bad stomach.
No, he's got a real bad head cold. It's got him. He took so much stuff forward. He's a little bit swimmy-headed, and he's not feeling real good, but he seems to be feeling pretty good right now. We had to come in and push the seat over for him, so he's pretty well relaxed out there, but he's running real hard, and he seems to think that he's not working himself real hard, but I don't know what it'll be from here on out. We've still got a pretty good ways to go, you know.
That's Dale Inman, the man who bosses the Petty pit crew, and he's a little uncomfortable himself with that great big old headset on. That's the radio they use to talk to each other. Now you see Richard Brooks move over to give the front runners a chance to go by. Looks like Brooks is tangled with somebody. He's got a bent left fender as Petty goes whistling by. Boy, I tell you, Petty is really flying right now. Benny Parsons passing Cale Yarborough. That's a fight for number 5 position at this point in the race. Benny Parsons sailing along in car number 72. As Maurice Petty, Richard's brother, and Dale Inman. both wearing radios, holding stopwatches, watching what's going on. Still a long way to go in the Southern 500. Baker now closes behind Petty. Buddy trying to draft him, get back by him, and comes up alongside. Looked like both of them got a little squirrely at that particular point in the racetrack. But Buddy, using the slingshot, goes back past Richard Petty to reassume the lead. For just about the time it appeared that Richard was going to run everybody down and leave him sitting in the shade, bang, here comes Baker. Of course, David Pearson is still back in there. He's running right behind Bobby Allison in the number 4 position and beginning to close right now on Bobby Allison. Benny Parsons, and a slide through the turn.
I don't believe Benny got in the wall. I believe he'd be able to go ahead and finish the race. It looked like he might have grazed it a little bit, but not very hard.
I didn't see anybody tap him or anything else. I think maybe he just got in a position, maybe hit something a little slick, maybe cut a tire, broke loose from the racetrack, so he's coming on around to the pits, and that brings out the caution flag. And, of course, that's going to bring everybody into the pits because most of the cars were about due for a pit stop anyway. Some of them will make 2, sometimes perhaps even 3 if it is an extended caution flag. If you like this kind of racing, we'll have a look at it tomorrow at the Wilkes 400 in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina. NASCAR Grand National Stock Car Racing, September 28th. The Old Dominion 500 in Martinsville, Virginia. October 5, the National 500 in Charlotte, North Carolina. We'll have more racing later here in Darlington. Right now, let's go to Las Vegas, Nevada. Frank Gifford and the National Wrist Wrestling Championship. All right, Frank, and the Southern 500 continues here at the old Darlington Raceway, and Richard Petty now is trying to put Bobby Allison a lap down, and I want to say at this particular point, Petty is back running just as strong as he was a little while ago. It seems to go in surges. Right now, he's back on it and moving very well, and he's up right behind Bobby Allison. These two guys have had some memorable duels on racetracks all over the Grand National Circuit in NASCAR racing. Dave Marcus, driving car number 71 since we've been away, has moved up into that number 2 position. Now Petty gets the slingshot going, and Richard's going to pass Bobby Allison. Bang, he's got him. So Richard Petty puts Allison a lap down to lead the race. And Dave Marcus in car number 71 is running in the number 2 position. And this crowd of more than 70,000 is hooting and hollering. And David Pearson is a lap down in car number 21, the Mercury. He had to make a pit stop under the green and lost the lap. And they go whipping around here pretty fast. The racetrack is a little less than 1.5 miles, and they're doing under the green about 150-plus miles an hour, Darrell. And Darrell Derringer, who won this race in 1966, sitting alongside of me, I'm pretty sure more comfortable than he would be if he had been in the race as he had anticipated.
Keith, I'm pretty excited about this race. The boys are really putting on a show here. They're running fender to fender, bumper to bumper. And the speeds they qualified at 153 miles an hour, and look like right now they're running approximately 150 miles an hour during the race. So it is one heck of a race.
Look at that Dave Marcus whip out and slingshot Bobby Allison. So the Matador seems to have slowed just a little bit. Of course, in the course of 500 miles, as you get a perspective of the distance between the leader, Richard Petty, and the pursuers, a lot of things will happen. Your chassis will change, your car will start pushing, or it'll get loose or something like that. And while we've been away, Buddy Baker, the big guy from Charlotte, has gone out of the race. You can see how hot and tough it is. This is what happened when Buddy Baker's car went out. He just apparently blew something, got a little oil flash fire into there, but there was no protracted fire. Buddy brought it into the garage, parked it, got out, and got himself cooled off. In the meantime, Benny Parsons continues to run hard. Remember, Benny Parsons was involved in a slide through the turn, but he came back after getting fresh tires and is running real hard right now. Cale Yarborough there in car number 11, running alongside of him. Cale has not been a factor so far in the race, but as long as he's out there, you got to watch him. David Pearson is on the wall between turns 1 and 2. Pearson, the pole sitter, the man who has been on the pole for the Southern 500 7 times, runs in bad luck. I don't know what happened, Darrell. Looks like he just kind of slid into the wall.
Well, Keith, I imagine as it is here today, the track probably got real greasy, so he probably hit a greasy spot and slid into the wall.
And he's heading right down into pit road now to see if he can repair it. There is no yellow. The green light stays on, so this is going to be very expensive to David Pearson, who has never won the Southern 500. Now, he's won the Rebel 500 5 times, the race that is run here at Darlington in the springtime. but he's never been able to take this trophy home. The Woods Brothers crew working on him, pulling out some sheet metal, changing tires on that side. Oh, we got Richard Brooks on the wall. Richard Brooks hits it hard, but nobody else is involved, and Brooks coming out of turn 4 just ricocheted right down into pit road. So that does bring out the yellow flag, and everybody slows down at Darlington, and we'll be back for more racing in just a moment. Well, we've swept the racetrack now, and we're anticipating green as they come around 5 cars in the same lap. Number 71, Dave Marcus, has the lead for the first time of the day. Number 43, Richard Petty, is second. Number 72, Benny Parsons, third. Cale Yarborough is 4, car number 11. And Bobby Allison, car number 16, the green, waved in front of him, and Marcus jumps on it. Petty goes after him. Richard Petty is running high. Petty moving up alongside of him. It's a ho-ho! Rear end of Petty's car tapped the wall as Marcus slammed the door on it.
Oh, it looked like a tight squeeze right there for a while because, you know, when you're leading, you got the priority to go any place you want to. So right there, Marcus held up the racetrack.
So Dave Marcus with a little bit of daring do, and Richard Petty settled back for a minute. Now he's going to go the other side. This time he gets the draft going and just slams by him. So Richard is back into the lead, and walking up here, David Pearson, who's out of the race.
Same old question. What happened?
Well, Keith, it just wasn't our day. It seemed like every time I turn around, I'd have a flat tire or somebody's in my way one, and when I went to one, it just acted like the front tire was flat and wouldn't turn.
So you really didn't watch anything loose?
No, well, when I hit the wall, I guess it knocked the toe end out a little bit, and we come in and went back out, but I just couldn't drive it. It was all over the place. This is the worst race I've ever seen for the slower traffic. They just wouldn't get out of the pace of the car's way.
It seems like that. It seems every time you get a chance to get a little momentum, get going, bang, you'd be right up against somebody.
Yeah, I was running real good, and in fact, the car was handling good, but it just acted like I just couldn't get around the slower traffic.
One of these days, you're going to get this thing.
I hope so.
Oh, David Pearson's going to head for the shade tree. Here's that battle again now. You see number 16, Bobby Allison. He's whipped up alongside of Dave Marcus and unwinds himself. Bobby Allison was a lap down to both Petty and Marcus. He's now past 71 to unlap himself there, but he is still a lap down to the leader, Richard Petty. But all of a sudden, here comes Allison sort of out of the pack, and he's just booming. So it seems to me, Darrell, that the character of the car, the handling of it, a lot of things seem to change in this kind of conditions over a 500-mile distance. As you see, Allison, all of a sudden, is able to run with Petty and even pass him to get back into the same lap.
Keith, I believe on the last pit stop, under the caution, they made some chassis changes on Bobby's car, and it definitely helped because he's really moving now.
Look at that stack of them as they come booming around. Now, here's Marcus trying to make a move on Petty. Can't quite do it. That's a tight area, this old racetrack right there. That's Cale Yarborough in number 11. Now, remember, he's cooking along in the same lap, too. So Bobby Allison trying to stretch it out and get himself in a better position. If there should be another caution flag, as long as he's in front of that leader, then he can close right behind him under the NASCAR Grand National close-up rule. But the battle here is between Richard Petty and Dave Marcus. And then there is Cale Yarborough, lurking, lives just down the road in Timminsville, knows this racetrack as well as anybody. So far, we have had no driver changes. Remember, there were several of them who spoke of possible relief driving today, but so far we haven't had it. Here comes Dave Marcus on a slingshot, and he gets a hold of Petty and goes by him. So I don't know, Darrell, if Richard is slowing down. I've noticed a good bit of activity around the pit area. Dale Inman, the crew chief there, has been talking to Petty quite a bit. He's also summoned veteran driver Cuckoo Marlin, who is out of the race. Marlin right there is standing by in the Petty pit. It could be that he would be a relief driver. Oh, looky here. That is Dave Marcus, who was running up front. Suddenly, he's out of the race. He just whips off the racetrack, goes into the garage. I noticed they were spraying that car down quite a bit. It could be that he's been having some overheating trouble. Whatever, Marcus is gone. Meantime, Richard Petty in car number 43 is driving hard through slow traffic, stretching out the distance and putting cars between him and his primary pursuers, Benny Parsons, Cale Yarborough, and Bobby Allison. Darrell Derringer is down with Dave Marcus. Let's find out about it.
Dave, what happened to your car, Dave?
Well, Darrell, this has been running fine, and I just want to say that, Harry and them done a fine job. We were
a little bit off during the week of practice, but I told Harry, I said, I got her where I want it, and let the groove move up in the racetrack, and we'll be in good shape. And it was, and I think that we dropped the valve probably. So Richard Petty and them want me down there right now. I'm going to go down and give them a hand.
How's the racetrack?
The racetrack's in good shape as far as driving, but it's awful hot.
We'll be back in just a moment. It appears now that we're going to get some kind of an answer to the question about Richard Petty, as he has pulled down toward pit road. His brother Maurice is there. The crew chief, Dale Inman, is there. Apparently a decision has been made. You heard Dave Marcus say to Darrell Derringer a moment ago that he would relieve Petty, and that decision made because, one, Marcus was available, and two, Marcus is more familiar with the Dodge automobile. No car handles quite like this one. Every driver has his own individual thing about the handling and the chassis setup, but the feeling was that Dave Marcus could do the better job with this particular kind of a car than could Cuckoo Marlin. So Richard Petty comes out literally exhausted. In the meantime, I should tell you that Darrell Waltrip has relieved Benny Parsons in car number 72. And car number 72 now is in the lead as the Petty crew tries to pull a little sheet metal loose on the right rear, get new tires on it. Marcus is now in it. He's got to hurry because number 72 with Waltrip relieving Parsons is coming around and threatening to put him a lap down. But he gets out in good time and is on his way. Darrell Derringer there helping Richard Petty, holding one of the ice packs as he takes oxygen. You can see how drawn and weary the man is. He drove a heck of a race in miserable conditions, feeling sick from the middle of last night through the first part of the race. There's the leader there as Waltrip gets a little squirrely. Oh, it looked loose up there. Must be getting slick out on the racetrack. As he brings Benny Parsons, number 72, around in first place and closes in on Darrell Waltrip and Richard Petty's car. I'm sure that Waltrip does not know that Richard Petty is out of that car. But at the moment, he doesn't care. He's just trying to run him down and put him a lap down, and he's closing in a hurry on him. He's getting into a drafting position now. Oh, look out! Waltrip is loose. Marcus is loose. Hilton is on the wall. So we've got at least four cars involved. Number 72 continues running, but the whole rear end is caved in. It looked like number 43 wasn't heavily damaged, but James Hilton in car number 48 was involved, and his machine has stopped on the racetrack. In the meantime, here comes Waltrip, thumping along down pit road. Big question about this car is whether or not the chassis might be bent. So the caution light is on. While it's on, let's take a couple looks at the accident and see if we can totally define it and get some comments from Darrell Derringer.
Keith, it looks like going down the backstretch, going in number 3 corner. Bruce Jacoby bobbled, got into James Hilton. James Hilton got up against the wall.
And now as Hilton goes up against the wall, Darrell, suddenly here is Waltrip and Marcus and no place to go.
Well, this is one of the times when the driver has a decision to make. His first decision better be the right one, because right now the track is loaded with automobiles and no place to go. And you can see what happens here.
Now Marcus is going to tap Hilton. Hilton's still trying to hold his car on the wall. That keeps him out of traffic and hopefully opens up a place for these people to go. But once you break loose from the racetrack, you're just sort of riding along in an unguided missile, aren't you?
Yes, the drivers always try to keep their cars away from the oncoming traffic so they won't be hitting the left side of the car.
Now, let's take one more look. You can see James Hilton, after the bump with Jacoby, took his car to the wall, tried to hold it there. Right behind him is 43. There's a hole that Dave Marcus might very well have made it through if he had had traction. But he had already broken loose from the racetrack. His car was out of control. And then right behind him comes Waltrip in car number 72, also losing contact with the racetrack. And despite the fact that there was, for a moment, an alley to pass through, they were not able to exercise opportunity. And we'll see whether or not car number 43 is badly damaged. We know that 72's been up because they're hammering on it. Darrell Waltrip is getting out of car number 72 now, and Benny Parsons is going to go back in. And Waltrip looks exhausted. In the meantime, also on pit road is car number 16, the Matador, driven by Bobby Ellison. And here is Roger Penske's crew swarming all over it. This is the lead car at this point. Now, Bobby Ellison at one time was almost 2 laps down, but the way things have swung here in the Southern 500, Bobby Allison now goes off pit road as the leader in this race. And it's also worth noting there's a great big thundercloud hanging just beyond the racetrack, so we may be facing the possibility of rain. Right now, let's get over here to Darrell Waltrip, who just vacated car number 72.
It must be just suffocating in there, Darrell. Well, it's so hot in the cars, the humidity is high, and you're having to run so hard. Benny's car will just literally fly. It's the fastest car on the racetrack. If one man could get in and run it, I'm sure he could outrun Richard and win the race. But you can only do so much. Maybe we can double up on him, I don't know, but the car will run.
Well, when you came out of there, you looked like you were just absolutely in a state of faint.
I was running hard as I could to catch up with Richard. I put him a lap down, and I exhausted myself, just literally exhausted myself.
What was it that caused the bang into the rear?
Hilton lost it up in 3 and 4, and I had to spin to miss him, and Richard got into it too.
Better sit down and get some rest. Of course, as I indicated earlier, Darrell Waltrip really didn't know that it was Dave Marcus driving Richard Petty's car when all of this began to happen. Obviously, the caution light is on, will be for a while, and we'll be back at Darlington in just a moment with more racing action in the 26th running of the Southern 500. Well, we're going to have a finish to this 26th Southern 500. The track has been dried out. The race cars have been on it. They've been running under a yellow to make sure that it's in racing condition. Everything looks pretty good shape right now. The pace cars leading them around, and we can anticipate green almost any time, and I don't think anybody in the grandstand, anybody in the infield left. Now, looking back just a few minutes ago, Richard Petty climbed back in his car. He had relief from Dave Marcus. The rain came along. He's ready to go. And believe it or not, so is number 72. It looks like it's been to war, but it's still running pretty well. And as a matter of fact, number 72 is the leader at this point. 3 cars in the same lap. Cale Yarborough in number 11 is second, and Bobby Allison in car number 16 now is sitting in number 3 position. Here's the green flag. And Richard Petty, who is almost 2 laps down to the leader, really jumped on that restart. Darrell Derringer, a man who won this race in 1966, a man who's still active today, coming back to a great racing career. It looks like Petty's ready to really run hard toward the finish.
I believe so, Keith. That little rest they had during the rainstorm gave all the boys a little spirit, and that's what they needed, because it's been awful hot today, and right now, they're really out to win this race.
Bobby Allison now has moved past Cale Yarborough into second place, and he's coming mighty hard and closing on number 72, Benny Parsons. Oh, Parsons is loose on the turn. Benny Parsons sliding. Allison just gets by. Parsons on the wall trying to get out of the way. Most of the traffic goes below. The rest of them go high, and I don't know how in the world Allison got through there, but Benny Parsons, who has had his problems on this old racetrack, the Rebel earlier this year. There comes the tire. The party's over for Benny. But he's running out there in front. He was leading the Rebel and had a crash with David Pearson. Slow motion replay here. Darrell Derringer, let's figure out what happened.
Well, I don't really know for sure, Keith, but it looked like it might have been something broke on the rear suspension of his car, because, you know, he's had several accidents today.
And look how close that Allison was when he went by.
Boy, I bet he held his breath when he went by there. So I don't really know what happened, but it looked like something gave away in Benny's rear end.
Certainly this old racetrack has not been very kind to Benny Parsons. Bobby Allison now goes into the lead. The caution light enables Richard Petty to close in, and now he's only 1 lap down. They've got to take some time to sweep the racetrack, and we'll be back with more in a moment. Here we go toward the final miles of the Southern 500. Bobby Allison is running in first place. Cale Yarborough on the other side of the racetrack is in second place. Richard Petty in car number 43 is third, and he is a lap down to the leader, Bobby Allison. Now, Darrell Derringer, how in the world do you keep a man like Richard Petty at bay?
Well, right now, if I was in Bobby's shoes, I'd use up the whole racetrack to keep him a lap down, which is vice versa. If Richard was leading, he'd do the same thing to Bobby.
In other words, use the racetrack as well as that slower traffic.
That's his weapon.
Okay. Bobby Allison holding the lead, and Cale Yarborough running in second, and Petty trying to find the spot, trying to time the move. And you see, people are just not giving up the racetrack to these people either. Oh, here's Cale Yarborough blowing up on the back straight. Looks like Yarborough's engine just went whoop. When you get that much smoke coming out of it, it's all over. So Cale Yarborough is out of the race, and that means Richard Petty is now in the number 2 position, running directly behind Bobby Allison, but a lap down. Now, Richard Petty has got to get by Allison, and look at there. That's called using the racetrack. Oh, here comes Petty out of the slingshot up alongside of Allison. He may take him right here. I think he's got him. He does. So Richard Petty is now in the same lap as Bobby Allison. You get a yellow light, Richard Petty will go right around and close right up on Bobby Allison's bumpers. So the yellow light becomes something to watch for here. These are 2 of the old pros of the game, so let's just watch them work at it. Coming up next, except on the West Coast, over most of these ABC stations, NCAA regional football, Tennessee at UCLA, Missouri at Illinois, BYU at Colorado State, VMI at Virginia. That's next. Now let's spend a moment with Roger Penske, the boss man of this Bobby Allison car.
It looks like the car may be handling a little better than it was early.
Yeah, we've made some changes in the chassis, and Bobby wanted it. It seems to make a big difference in the way he's been running. He was able to run out in front of Richard there before he came in, which proved that we got the car working even better now.
He must be made out of cork. I mean, not asking for any relief out there.
No, Bobby's pretty tough. We keep pouring water on him, but we try to keep him cool.
You know, it's amazing that Bobby Allison was actually 2 laps down earlier in this race, but over 500 miles, so many changes can take effect. Now, Richard Petty is the pursuer. He is in the same lap chasing Bobby Allison. The yellow light is obviously very much a factor. But I have a question, Darrell. What about the other guys? Are they just going to give up the racetrack to these 2?
No, Keith, the other boys are back there racing just like Richard and Bobby are. They're working for a position, and each one of them trying to move up towards the end of the race, and that's exactly what's happening right now.
So the chase goes on as Petty pursues Allison. It's happened so many times, and when I've been around to see it, it's always been exciting. It's going to be again. We have the finish of the Southern 500 here at the Darlington Raceway right in front of us. We'll see it in a moment. Laps to go in this 26th Southern 500 at Darlington, South Carolina, and more than 70,000 people are standing. This is the pursuer, Richard Petty. King Richard, they call him. He's had some kind of a day. Sick half the night, sick all day long, drove part of the race, got relief from Dave Marcus. The car has been on the wall. The car has been spun twice. It's bumped around quite a bit, but it's still running and running very well as Dale Inman and his crew have kept it together. After the rainstorm, Petty came back, got back in it. Now he's chasing Bobby Allison in car number 16. Equally a remarkable story. Leading with 2 laps to go by 25 seconds over Richard Petty. Allison at one time was 2 laps down to the leaders of the race. He did not take any relief. He's tough. He hung in. They improved the suspension and handling throughout the race. Now as we near the end, Darrell Derringer, I know that Bobby Allison is gambling on his fuel.
I think so, Keith. I think right now he's really backed off. He's trying to save fuel and hoping Petty will run out and he can coast on in.
Of course, everybody involved with the Petty crew is hoping that something happens. They don't wish anybody bad luck, but a yellow caution light would be so welcome to them because that would enable Richard to close right in behind Bobby. 1 lap to go as the white flag flutters in the breeze. And there's Roger Penske walking on a hot rock right now, watching his car come around. 25-second lead. Now it's actually about 22-second lead for Bobby Allison. I suppose that he could coast around at this point if he did run out of gas, but they've taken it right to the bottom of the tank. Here comes Bobby, hurtling down the back straight, going into turn number 3. He's just about home free. He won the Rebel earlier in the spring. This will be his 3rd victory here at Darlington in the Southern 500. Here he comes. He's got the checker, and he wins it and backs off immediately. He knows he's low on fuel. But he, Roger Penske, the team members all agreed to take the gamble, and it paid dividends to the tune of $20,870. Here comes Richard Petty now, thundering along, and he'll take the checkered flag for second place worth $13,395. David Sisko in car number 05 gets a good payday. $8,600 for third place. Jim Vandiver comes in fourth, and Bruce Hill finishes in the number 5 position. But what a day it was at Darlington, and here comes the winner, Bobby Allison.
So ends another small war. Woo! You said it. Everything was really perfect, and looks like a shock or something broke on the rear end, maybe a strut arm, and the car began to hop a lot, and really had me worried there. You know, Richard really put on the press at the end, and I'm just really happy for us and American Motors, Matador, and Coke.
You're 2 for 2. Hadn't been a bad year at Darlington, horse.
Now, that little car likes Darlington, doesn't it?